Hey everyone, and welcome to day 27 of our study through the New Testament. And we're reaching the point where Jesus turns water into the wine. This is his first miracle. And this is coming out of John 2, verses 1 through 12. And I'm not going to read through this one. It is 12 verses, but I want you all to read through this, but we're going to hit the highlights of this. So we have a wedding feast, and Jesus and his mother and some of the disciples are with him. And so the fact that the mother and disciples attend this, it means it was probably more than likely a close friend or relative to the family. It didn't have to be. We don't know that for sure, but more than likely, that was usually the type of events that they would have been invited to. The disciples that would accompany them would have been the five that we've already looked at and that were mentioned. That would be Andrew, Simon Peter, Philip, Nathaniel, and then the unnamed apostle or disciple, and that would be was surely John, who was the author of this a book. So what we see here is the wine runs out. And the way weddings were here back in this day wasn't like how we celebrate weddings, where we get together in the evening and the wedding's at 4 and we celebrate into the night. Many times it would be a week or more celebration, and so if you were having a wedding and a celebration, it was very important that you planned properly and you made sure that you had plenty of wine, plenty of food, plenty of anything to last for everyone the entire week. And so the wine ran out, and this would have been very embarrassing for the bride and the groom and those who had planned it. So we see this layout, but one of the things I've highlighted in three, and this kind of covers verse 3 and 10, I kind of grouped them together here, is there's kind of been this thought, and this thought started coming about in about the mid 19th century, I believe it is, and it was this non-alcoholic movement, and honestly, it's what we saw prohibition come out of, and things like that. It was taught that, well, this wasn't wine that Jesus made; it was grape juice. And I want to hit on this for a good reason. And some people say, well, Chad, this doesn't really matter. I think it does, because I think when we try to twist things to fit a narrative that we want to teach or preach, then it really causes Christianity to lose its credibility a little bit, because I think the real world can see through it, and I think it makes us look less credible when we speak to things in such a way. So this was wine that was served at the party, would have been alcoholic wine. And if you go back and study ancient wine and the way it was made, most wine that they would make would have been had an alcohol content between 12 and 15%, similar to the wine we make today. And but one of the things they would do is, especially like at a party like this, and even like if they were serving it for meals and different things, especially, is they would dilute the wine down. They would mix it with water to dilute it down, make it last longer. And there were some other reasons for doing this, but even with it diluted down, it would have been somewhere around 3 to 5%, which is our common, what common beer has today. And so what they were drinking at this party was alcoholic wine, and what Jesus turned it into would have been the better of the wine, which would have been more alcoholic wine. So the more than likely the wine that Jesus created when he turned this water into wine would have been about that 12 to 15% alcoholic content. And so I want to hit that, because I think like I said, I think we do a disservice when we try to say, well, no, Jesus only drank grape juice. He never drank alcohol. I know that might hit some people, but Jesus drank alcohol, right? And then we look at the Bible, and we're going to look at the verses around this. There's nothing in the Bible that says it's wrong to drink alcoholic drink, right? What the Bible says is wrong is drunkenness, and to get drunk. And that's where we have to make sure we know the difference. And so Jesus drank alcohol, but he never got drunk. And that's the thing we need to relate here. And I know I'm kind of diverting a little bit, but I want to hit this subject because I think it's an important subject. Now, what that doesn't mean is if you're not comfortable drinking alcohol, or you don't want to drink alcohol, that is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you say for biblical reasons, or for what, I don't want to be tempted at all, so I don't drink, there is nothing wrong with that. Now, if you're a Christian and you drink alcohol, there's nothing wrong with that. If you have a glass of wine, or if you have a beer, there's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is if you drink so much alcohol that you get drunk. And so that's where we've got to make sure that we're careful and we respect each other's decisions in how we operate around this subject. Paul writes about similar things when he talks about meats, certain meats that are sacrificed to idol, and we're going to look at those. And this would fall under that same thing, right? It's not a sin to drink alcohol, but some people think that it's wrong to drink alcohol. And so we have to be. If I come across someone who believes that it's sinful to drink alcohol, I'm not going to drink alcohol in front of them. But so in the same other way, and so we got to make sure that we are respectful for other people, because and at that point, if you just are blatantly, I'm going to do this because I want to do this, well, then you're wrong, and that's sinful. And so this is where we've got to be mutually respectful of people in the ways that they believe and their beliefs and their personal convictions. We have to be respectful of other people's convictions and understanding of them. Now, we don't shouldn't try to force them on the people, especially if we know we can see biblically that it's not wrong. But if you have a conviction about it, again, I understand that. And so we just need to be careful in this. But if you study this, then yes, this would have been alcoholic. And to teach that it wasn't, this is where like we can look historically at what they drank and what they had back then and what the alcohol content of the stuff was back then. And so when we start saying, oh well, no, it was grape juice, we kind of look a little stupid. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but it's like we lose our credibility because we know what they had back then. And so that's why I wanted to hit on this. And I'm sorry if I ranted a little bit or went a little bit too far, but I just want to make sure we're accurate when we talk about these type of things. And so, because if we're not, even with something that may seem small, if we're not accurate about it, or we're not right, and we tell other people things that aren't right about it, then again we lose our credibility when we start trying to talk about other things that are very serious. And so I just wanted to hit on that. So but they run out, and so when they run out, Jesus' mom Mary says, hey, they have no more wine to Jesus. And he says, in some translation, he says woman. In the New Living Translation, translate this, dear woman. But he uses this, in our modern day, if I just went up to someone and said woman, that would be very disrespectful. This wasn't a disrespectful tone or, that Jesus was using. It was a polite but like distance type, hey, this really isn't our problem. Mom, this isn't our problem. What does this have to do with me and you? And he still says his time hasn't come yet, right? This is not to him. This isn't the time and place. But we see in verse 5, Mary's like, do what he tells you to do. And so it's kind of funny. It's like Mary. So Mary didn't take this as a firm refusal. She took it as a, well, I don't know. Maybe it was a refusal, but Mary is the mother. You know how moms are. Even the mother of God, right? It's just you're going to do what your mom tells you to do. And so she just looks and says, do what he tells you. And so there were six stone ceremonial washing jugs, and this is a neat parallel that we have here. So there were these jars. They were stone jars, and they would have been one solid stone piece that would have been carved out. Excuse me, and they would have been on average 20 to 30 gallons each. So not only did Jesus make some wine, more than likely he made about 180 gallons of wine. It was a lot of wine that he made. But what was interesting is there's a parallel here, and I don't think I put this in the notes, is there's a parallel between using these Jewish ceremonial washings to fill with water and then turn them into a new wine or a fresh wine. And so there's some symbolism in Jesus using ceremonial cleansing jugs or jars and then turning them into wine and representing something new. And so there was some symbolism in there, if you see that. So they dip it out, they take it to the master of the ceremonies, and again, it was the new wine. It was this new, because like I said, what they would typically do is they'd start with the new wine, but as people enjoyed the celebration and got a little bit further into the celebration, they would dilute it down. They would slowly dilute it down so that it lasted longer and didn't quite have the effect as it went in, but still had alcohol content, most likely got down to the lowest, about 3%. But we said that they're like, well, why are you saving the best wine for now? Why are you saving this best wine for now? And so we see that happening, and John writes that they this was the first time that Jesus had revealed his glory, and his disciples believed in him. They saw this, and I would too if I'm sitting there and this guy fills up a bunch of jugs full, or jars full of water, and then all of a sudden they just turn into some really nice, some of the best wine. I'm going to say, hey, that's a miracle. And so they believe them, and so we see this statement, and this indicates that Jesus did not do any miracles in his childhood. I know there's some external sources, some external things that really aren't canon, that try to say that Jesus did miracles in his childhood. We don't have any recording of that, and like we talked about with Jesus in the when he was baptized, it appears, we don't know for sure, that Jesus didn't even have the ability to do miracles, or couldn't perform miracles until after he was baptized and the Holy Spirit fell on him and came down on him. Again, we're not 100% sure on that, but again, that seems to be the thought there. So he just did ordinary things and hid who he was from this, even after the fact. And it seems like he, at this point, he really didn't want to do it yet. He didn't want to reveal himself yet. He said his time hadn't come, but he listened to his mom. His mom asked him to do something, and he still did it. So there's probably a lesson in that too, is we need to respect our mothers. When our mothers ask us to do something, as sons, we probably, and daughters too, we need to do it. So again, I hope you like this one. Again, I know this one might be a little bit hard for some people. And if you have questions, ask about them, or if you see things that you may not agree with. Because again, I know there's that this particular subject, some people don't agree with me on this. But I think if you look at the historical evidence and look at history and what they had back then I think that would fall in line with what would have happened. But again, we're part of what we do here is we have open conversations, and we can agree to disagree. Again, this isn't one of those things where, like, if you disagree, it's not a it's not a, oh my goodness, we can't have anything to do with each other because we don't agree on this particular subject. We can agree to disagree and move on and still have a wonderful Christian loving friendship and relationship. And that's what Christianity is supposed to look like. Anyways, if everyone just agreed about every single thing, you don't have a real Christianity. You just got a robotic religion, and that's not what was intended here. So again, I hope you're enjoying these. I highly encourage you to please share them. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to our channel so we can get these out. We're going to do some other video series and some other things outside of just the New Testament study that we want to share with people and have them see. But again, I appreciate those who have been watching all the way through. And again, I just thank you for tuning in.